Bro, we tired of excuses. Ek sê my people need solutions. Kykie, ons nodig verandering, nie mense wat kom praat. Hier kom jy help met die change, wie nie na die vote, my mense jump. Nou hello, hi, ek het die boodskap en ek sing het meneer. Moeg gekyk van hoe die negatieve dinge gebeur. Kom in my plek, ek sal jou wys hoe dinge binne beweeg. En jylle first hand experience gee van hoe ons hier leef. Kinders wil kinders wees, maar hulle die je paakie nie. Nou staan hulle op die corner met jongens so boere gangsterkies. Ons kla nou al vir jare oor die saak van ons verdreine wat lek. Excuse me, water's a necessity. So yeah, pass with that. So many promises were made, but nothing like it received. They said they gonna build houses, haast nog how days a eve. Wat staan van 1980 something, I've give hope for my streets. Be the reflection of perfection. Don't stick out when it's just election, cause
we're tired of excuses. My people want solutions.
Nou kyk jy ons nodig verandering, nie mense wat kom praat. Hier kom jy help met die change, wie nie dat die vote, my mense jumpy.
We're tired of excuses. People want solutions.
Nou kyk jy ons nodig verandering, nie mense wat kom praat. Hier kom jy help met die change, wie nie dat die vote, my mense jump. Education's elevation to better the situation. And educators educate in a state of complication. The teachers on their knees in supplication. Wanna do their occupation with a breeze, master feel ventilation. But ek bedoel die klasse hier se vensters is uit. And we can barely pay jou school fees, nou minus vir blaai ook by. En kyk jy so, ek skool my kabeg, maar hy se geld toe iets hy. So voor julle billboards en bordjies wil zijn, so die pension is uit. Geef vir die sassa rechte reis en baby mamas beter always. Sports and the arts need assistance in all ways. Bro, my people needs a difference in more ways than one. So as ons vote me nie net kompromis nie man, sien nie man.
We're tired of excuses. My people want solutions.
Nou kyk jy ons nodig verandering, nie mense wat kom praat. Hier kom jy help met die change, wie nie na die vote, my mense jumpy.
We're tired of excuses. People want solutions.
Nou kyk jy ons nodig verandering, nie mense wat kom praat. Hier kom jy help met die change, wie nie na die vote, my mense jumpy.
I think we're gonna get started now, and I think Refiloe is with us. Refiloe, if you can just indicate that you're ready for us.
Good evening to the residents of Ekurhuleni and welcome to DA Dialogue Hour. Once again, we are highly excited to have you back, but I would like us to take a break. I just want to get hold of my guest for the night. Oh, there she is. Now I'm excited. Good evening, residents of Ekurhuleni. I want to say it and shout it from the rooftops. Tonight, I am highly, highly excited to welcome everybody to the DA Dialogue Hour, where I, Refiloe Nt'sekhe, and the team communicate with you on what's happening in the DA broadly, but also we get to talk to you about what's happening in Ekurhuleni, as well as my vision as the mayoral candidate for what I'm going to do to change Ekurhuleni so that we can be better than Cape Town. Tonight, I'm extremely excited. I have a friend. I have somebody I look up to so much. She is the chief whip in parliament, but she comes to us as somebody who's driven a big, big issue for South Africa, which is state capture. And she is none other than incredible powerhouse. When you want to get something done, this is the kind of woman you want to ask her to do something for you. This is somebody, when you have to go into war, I would take her with me. And I want to today welcome her to the DA Dialogue Hour. Welcome, Natasha Mazzone.
Thank you, Refiloe. What a beautiful introduction. And you're making me smile so much because we shouldn't give away our age, but Refiloe and I know each other from school days, and we are proudly young Pretorian women, because we're still young Pretorian women, and we have so much in common because Refiloe went to Pretoria Girls High and I went to the Glen High, which were schools that were close together, but there were so few English schools that we all used to meet at sports day events. So Refiloe and I knew each other when we were 16 years old, and little did we know that one day Refiloe would be running as the mayor of Ekurhuleni, and she's going to win, and she will be the mayor of Ekurhuleni, and we would have our political paths just continue through life. So not only friendship, but that we would walk a very similar political path. So for me, it's a particular pleasure to be with Refiloe today. And I have been watching with a hawk's eye how Refiloe's campaign's going, because I'm so lucky that I am the air war manager for the DA for this particular campaign. And I am watching how the polls are turning every day, and how Refiloe and her vision for Ekurhuleni is being seen and being understood by so many residents, and how hungry the residents of Ekurhuleni are for this change, because they can see that Refiloe is not only offering them a promise, she's offering them a vision that is so tangible and has been worked out and has been costed, and they know that Refiloe can bring the change that they so desperately need. So, I mean, I get phone calls every day. The chief whip, in the chief whip's office, we worked it out the other day, me and my secretary, we get on average about 6,000 emails a week. And we just had emails from people in Ekurhuleni saying how happy they were that finally they had some form of hope that they would have lights on and their substations would be looked after, and that they were just thrilled about the excitement that Refiloe's campaign is launching in Ekurhuleni. So I always tease Ref. I land in the airport and I say to her, I'm just going to quickly do a check around of your ward when I'm at the airport, and she keeps telling me that it's so much more than the airport. So I said to her, no. I said, the president told us it's the aero hub of Southern Africa. So we have this wonderful game every time I land. I find out where she is and if she can come and have coffee with me at the airport, and she never can, because she's always somewhere on the ground doing something with the activists. So it's a pleasure for me to be here tonight. So I do get to see her, even if it's only on camera, but I do get to see her firsthand, and I get to openly congratulate her for being our mayoral candidate. I get to openly tell her how proud she makes not only me, but everyone who knows her, and how proud she makes the DA, and how she trailblazed, and she doesn't even realize it. She was one of the youngest ever deputy chairs of our party. And she sat on one of the highest decision-making bodies at a time when it was unheard of for people in their early 30s to be on these kind of bodies. And Refiloe was there leading the path. And now we have people in their 20s who Refiloe blazed the way for them to now enjoy these positions in high office, because Refiloe led the way. So she's trailblazed, and so many of us look up to her. And I mean, I love the way she says, she looks up to me. She only looks up to me because I'm 6'2", so I'm a bit taller than her. But we look up to her, and so many of our young politicians look to her as being the sort of face of the person who broke the glass ceiling. So it's really wonderful to be here tonight, and it's wonderful to see some of my colleagues, and it's lovely to see some of the residents that I've dealt with in meetings when I've come through to Ekurhuleni. And it's just really good to be here, and it's good to bring you some good news, because we're living in a time where good news is very, very hard to come by. So I bring you news that arrests are starting to happen in state capture, and they're happening in ways that we can't begin to imagine. So
well. I think you get up to the topic of tonight. And Ekurhuleni is not only on Zoom with us tonight. We normally have about 200 people watching on Facebook. So the first hour, I'm going to have a conversation with you.
Fantastic.
The first 30 minutes. And then the next 30 minutes, we let the people of Ekurhuleni ask you questions, because I'm just showing people that as much as I'm the mayoral candidate, I am just an ambassador for this big blue machine called the Democratic Alliance. So tonight I get to profile, on Tuesdays, I get to profile some of our national leaders and some of the sterling work which you guys are doing at a national level. Yes, I am one of the national leaders, but some of the work that you touch particularly. I mean, tonight is especially big for us because we are talking about state capture. And we're going to start with what you've been dealing with at a national level. And I'm going to unpack a bit for the residents of Ekurhuleni how state capture starts at a national level and comes down to a local government level, because we're starting to see state capturing happening right here in Ekurhuleni. where we've got the biggest airport on the continent. So Tash, you know what, most people don't actually understand even what the term state capture means. And I think you have lived, eaten, drank, had murder threats against you because of state capture. Unpack for us Ekurhuleni people who might not know what state capture means, and then we'll go into the rest of the questions and what you've been doing.
Okay, Ref, that's state capture is an interesting concept, and it was actually classified as a word in 20, what was it? Let me think now, I've got to think of the date. It was the 2018 word of the year. So Oxford Dictionary has a word that they bring out every year that, you know, they have because obviously languages evolve, and as languages evolve, so words develop and they have different meanings. And state capture was defined by the Pan-African Language Association as a word in 2018, meaning what happens when a syndicate, a criminal syndicate, takes control over state infrastructure. So it's now an officially recognized term and word in the dictionary. And that is essentially what it means. It means that the government loses control of state-owned entities, and criminal syndicates then come in and they take control of these state-owned entities, and they start to divide them. They break them up piece by piece into equitable sizes, so that the criminal syndicate has a chance to buy off or sell off pieces of the entity, until finally there's just a skeleton left at the entity, which the government continues to pay money into. But all the profits of that entity are now going to the criminal syndicates who have bought off pieces. And the easiest way to explain to you in terms that we can understand is we use a word in state capture a lot, which is a billion, where a billion rand was stolen here or a billion rand was transferred there. And we get so used to it that the word billion just rolls off our tongue. And now even the word trillion is starting to roll off our tongue. Now, to put it into context, if you were to count starting now, 1 second to a billion, it would take you 31 years, 363 days and 4 hours. That's how long it takes to count to a billion. So we're talking about magnitudes of money that we can't actually imagine, because they're just zeros that we see. And how they do this is, for example, a company like Eskom is huge. It's a massive company. And it runs basically using coal that it buys, normally at coal that is costed and negotiated at a low price. And they buy massive amounts of coal, which they burn at their coal-fired power stations. So a company comes together and does a bid to build a new power station. So Medupi was this new power station, which was going to, well, it is already the world's largest coal-fired power station. And what they did is they allowed companies to bid for example, coal. And instead of charging us, for example, 5 rand per ton of coal, these companies were coming in and being bought out by criminal syndicates, and they started to charge us 15 rand a ton for coal. So instead of paying 5 rand, we would pay 15 rand per ton of coal. And then they would say, right, now we're going to build a conveyor belt between the mine and the actual power station. So a company would get the tender, and that tender was okay, but then the actual conveyor belt never worked. So a trucking company then got a tender to truck the coal in. But you can imagine the size of Medupi, you require 20, 15 trucks at any time, just carting up and down coal between these mines. And again, instead of the company charging us, let's say, for example, 15,000 rand a load, the company would then charge 50,000 rand a load. So we had this conveyor belt now doing no work, and we had a trucking company that got the tender to get the coal up and down. Then there's a storage facility problem. So many South Africans write to me and say, but the answer is so simple. It rains up on the Highveld in summer. So why don't you cover the coal? You know, get a big top and cover the coal. Now, here's something I didn't know, because let me be the first one to say I think I'm now probably the most famous matriculant in South Africa. And one thing I certainly never thought I would know anything about is coal, but I do. Coal combusts when it's under pressure.
Yes.
So if you take that coal and you pile it all up and you cover it with a top, which is the way you would keep it dry, it will start to self-combust. So it's not a possibility. So these storage facilities then had to be built to keep the coal inside the storage facilities and try and keep the coal dry. None of them were ever built. So the money was paid over to these companies to build storage facilities, but there was no storage facilities. And that's why the coal gets wet. Then we found out, and this is where state capture really, the zenith of state capture hit, was we found out that a deal had been done with Optimum Coal Mine. And it was a deal that was done in Geneva, because the deal was signed in Geneva through the Swiss banks. And we found out in a very strange way that has to remain secret until we go to court. But let's just say it's called being in the right place at the right time. And
Yes.
the IPU, which is the International Parliamentary Union, was sitting in Geneva at that particular time. And I saw a minister I shouldn't have seen walking into a bank I shouldn't have seen either. So that's how we knew it was happening. And basically, Medupi is what makes it a wondrous thing, even though it's now a cash cow that, I mean, is just sucking our lifeblood. What would have made Medupi amazing is it literally burns ash. You can use the lowest grade coal in the world in Medupi, which is great, because that means that you can export your good coal. And then we found out that because this Optimum coal deal had gone through, Medupi was burning really good quality coal that it didn't need to burn. So our coal exports, because we do export coal, were just on the increase. So again, South Africans were saying, but how can we export coal when we're having load shedding in our own country?
Yeah.
What you need to realize is that Medupi isn't built for good coal. It's built for bad coal. So it cannot burn the good stuff. It can only burn the bad stuff. But this coal export was done again to a company that we now know was linked to the Guptas and linked to other families that were linked to the Guptas, and illegal coal mines were dug in Limpopo province. And our then provincial leader in Limpopo, he took me, I mean, how I survived that. I mean, I'll never worry about being murdered in state capture again, because our provincial leader in Limpopo almost allowed me to die of heart failure. He took me up in a helicopter that was a rhino poaching helicopter, you know, the anti-poaching helicopters. And I don't know if you know what that means. It means it's got no doors. So there I was, terrified of flying in a helicopter with no doors. And every time we turned so that I could look into these open cast mines, the answer that the pilot gave me was, just hold on. Just hold on. And I was like, I'm going to fall out of a helicopter into a coal mine, like, get me down. But it was Helen Suzman who always used to say to us, and Refiloe, you'll remember this from a conversation she had with all of us when we were young. You go and see for yourself.
Correct.
The only way you get to the bottom of things is you go and you see for yourself. So I had to go and I had to get into that helicopter and I had to see for myself what was happening from the air. And Ref, it was so bad that the workers on the ground had these massive mirrors, and they were trying to shine the mirrors into the eye of the helicopter pilot. So, you know, that they get disorientated and they crash the helicopter. And that's why we went with the anti-poaching unit, because they're so used to poachers doing that. They can get around, they can fly around these mirrors. So it all sounds like very Goldfinger and the Quantum of Solace, James Bondy stuff. But that's what was actually happening. And I used to drive a pale blue Thomas Walton had the best name for it. He called it the
Your
light
Fiat.
turtle Fiat, yeah. And it was
Yeah.
this big, this very bright aqua blue Fiat. So it was hard to miss me, you know, in a car. And my brakes were cut. My car was moved one night. It was parked at the V&A waterfront, and I came back to find my car and it wasn't there. And they'd literally opened the door, they'd put the handbrake down and they'd moved it forward and left it in the middle of you know, one of the roads that you drive, you know, in the parking lot. And the ESCOM file that was in my boot was left on my front seat. My office in Parliament was broken into and ransacked. I mean, you know, come on, we're a bit more advanced than that. As if I'm going to leave a confidential document in my office in Parliament, you know, they get uploaded straight to the cloud, you know. So what they were hoping to find, I don't know. But quite frankly, I just think they were sending me messages, you know, trying to say, look, well, we know where you are.
Scare you
and,
off.
You know,
Scare
and they
you
were trying
off,
to
I
scare
think,
me
was
off.
the tactic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you that they didn't scare me off. And here I have to give credit to my ANC colleague, whose name is Daphne Ranto, who unfortunately, because she told the truth and she was brave enough to lead this inquiry, didn't make it back to Parliament. And she testified alongside me in the Zondo Commission. And she is a good woman. She is proof that there are good people in all organizations who, when really called to stand up for her country, did so. And I consider her to be a hero, because her children were threatened on their way home from school numerous times. She had to get a special bodyguard at cost that she paid for to look after her children, and she made sure that hearing continued. So Ref, we dealt with some real South African heroes.
But I want to commend your dad as well, Natasha. For those in Ekurhuleni who don't know, Natasha lost an amazing man, her dad. And when she was working on the state capture stuff, this man used to drive her around in his Volvo because he didn't want her in that little tiny Fiat because he was so scared for her life. And I think it's important people understand that even in opposition, the work that we have to do is life-threatening. And Natasha, not once, not twice, her life has been literally told to her face she would lose her life for standing up and exposing this state capture. And I think, Tash, I want us to take it even further, because we've got 10 minutes and then we're going to take a small break because I want you to have a sip of something. I don't want you to speak with a dry mouth, and we'll go to a break. But I want you to explain how you then got called, explain how the Zondo Commission got set up, and how you then got called to come and give account of opposition and why parliamentarians had allowed state capture to happen, and how you explained the role of those in opposition benches, because like us here in Ekurhuleni, the Caucus is in an opposition bench.
Okay, so what happened was when our commission was finished, I mean, it was so obvious that we had proved beyond reasonable doubt that state capture happened. We had down to something silly, Ref, like a receipt from the Oberoi Hotel in Dubai, with Mashele Coco and Tony Gupta having a massage in the Oberoi Hotel together. I mean, they would do business deals in the spa. It was very civilized, you know, like, we're not just going to do a business deal, we're going to have a massage while we do this business deal. We even had people, brave South Africans, who were sending us these documents. These documents were being slipped under our doors. Again, a little frightening, but slipped under our house doors, things like that. We were getting all these documents. So we had proved beyond reasonable doubt that there was, you know, state capture was a real thing. And that is when the Zondo Commission, Parliament commissioned the Zondo Commission. And what always makes me laugh is that President Jacob Zuma himself appointed Judge Raymond Zondo as the head of the Zondo Commission. And now he's the one saying that there's a political ploy and plot against him by Judge Raymond Zondo. I mean, probably the most honest man in the country, and now the president is saying, you know, that it's Judge Zondo who's got something against him. So what we did is we handed up our report, and that report is known as the State Capture Bible, because what we did is Pravin Gordhan famously said we managed to join the dots. And that's all we had to do for the judiciary, was we had to join the dots so that the judiciary knew where to start and where to finish with their investigation. Now, it's so intricate. It's like such a spider web that Judge Zondo needs more time, because we've covered Eskom, but it's Transnet, it's Denel, it's Prasa, it's every state-owned entity you can imagine, even Alexkor. And Refiloe, I have to tell you about Alexkor. Alexkor sells diamonds. So they mine diamonds in the sea, in the Northern Cape, and they sell them on the international market. A company called Scarlet Sky got the bidding rights on our raw diamonds. They're a Gupta Link company, and the chairperson of Alexkor is a Gupta linked affiliate, openly so, not denied. So we would auction off our diamonds, sometimes at 70 points below what international costs were for raw diamonds. That's just one example. So Judge Zondo has to investigate all of this. You see, that's why he keeps asking for more time. So what I had to do is I had to go to Judge Zondo and basically explain that had the opposition not called for an investigation into state capture, which I can now tell you we did 17 times. 17 times we called for an investigation. We had 3 motions of no confidence against the president based on a motion of no confidence. And the last motion of no confidence was done in secret. So if people had wanted to in the ANC, they could have voted Jacob Zuma out. They didn't. So no one in the ANC can say that they were not complicit. And you must remember the leader of government business at the time was the deputy president, who was none other than Cyril Ramaphosa. Correct. Cyril Ramaphosa was the head of the cadre deployment project of the ANC. All deputy presidents are. It's now Didi Mabuza who's the head of it. So that means everyone who was employed in a state-owned entity, from Brian Malefi all the way down to Lucky Montana, Mashele Coco, to Dudu Mayeni, who was also the president's little on the side, all of them were appointed by the cadre deployment project headed by Cyril Ramaphosa. So he can never say that he did not know the links that these people had. And that's why I had to go to the Zondo Commission and explain the role of opposition. And we had to, my affidavit was about 17,000 pages long, because I had to give all the evidence that I had. My testimony was over 8 hours long. And I was one of the few people who was not asked to be cross-examined. That means that everything that I said at the Zondo Commission is taken to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, because no one has asked to cross-examine me. And I'll tell you why, Ref. In Parliament and in the legislature and in council, you never ask a question you don't know the answer to. So indeed. I always used to ask the questions when I had the receipt or I had the proof in my hand. And all it took was Lynn Brown, the then minister, lying on one question, and it opened the Pandora's box. And I had to go to Judge Zondo and explain how the opposition had opened Pandora's box and how the opposition had tried to be shut down and how we absolutely refused. And on the 17th go, there was no way they could not let us hold an inquiry into state capture.
Wow. Let me tell you, when I heard about billions and trillions, I've only just kind of dealt with millions, but I had to literally Google how many zeros were in a billion. 9 zeros.
Yeah, it's 1,000 million rand. I mean, it's incomprehensible. And just to think that one company, because international companies and Interpol got involved as well. That's why it was all like so James Bondy, because we were dealing with international national intelligences and, you know, MI5s and CIAs and people like that. And a company in America called McKinsey, they had to pay back 1 billion rand, which they've done.
Yes.
And their CEO came to Parliament. He flew in from America and he came and he testified before Parliament. And he actually landed up crying. He burst out crying. And he said, I'm so embarrassed that this has happened and happened under my watch, because he had then read the dossier that was sent to him, showing him what a high risk we are. And Refiloe, I can tell you this, which an ordinary South African wouldn't know. If you're a South African politician now, because of state capture, doesn't matter what level of government you are, a
Right.
bank will run a check on you before you
Yes.
can open a bank account, or before anyone in your family can open a bank account. Because of state capture, we are now considered the highest
High risk.
people in the world. Doesn't matter that we're the opposition. It's because we're all politicians. So they don't differentiate between politicians. So for a member of parliament or an MPL or a councillor to open a bank account is now a massive deal, because everyone is so scared after the risk analysis done by companies because we were rated the most corrupt country in the world. And that's just something we have to deal with.
Tasha, maybe I can just use an example. I went to open my 8-year-old and 11-year-old accounts about 3 months ago at Capitec, which is supposed to be a basic account for little kids for their pocket money. It took a week because immediately where other people would walk out with their cards, I was told, sorry, you're high risk. But I remembered that when I traveled abroad, we were considered high risk. And initially I thought it was only because of the internet changing Forex. But then you're actually spot on. How does an 8-year-old become high risk? An 8-year-old and an 11-year-old become high risk because their mother, Refiloe, is a politician. And so they have to be vetted through me, who's opening their accounts on their behalf. So
you see, Refiloe, unfortunately, it's because Duduzane and his sister also probably had accounts opened for them by their father. And that was high risk. So now you know how they say there's always got to be one that ruins it for all of us. Well, thank you, Jacob Zuma, for opening a bank account for any of our children ever again. So, I mean, that's why we're high risk. And it's just one of the things we have to deal with. And the South African public would never know that. So I love telling people these stories, because then they understand the way, we all get tarred with the same brush, even though, we're the good guys, but even the good guys have to prove that we're not stealing money. So, that's what state capture did to us.
Natasha, before I let you go and have a sip of that tea or water, and we go on a little bit of a break, people want to know, Zondo Commission, all the stuff we watch. Before I even get to that, our own HOD for Ekurhuleni human settlement has been linked to dubious accounts, yet the municipality has hired this man as the HOD for human settlements. Just to show you that the ANC has lost its moral ground completely.
The ANC never had its moral ground, Refiloe. That's why state capture was so easy. And don't think it's over. State capture has tentacles in every municipality across this country. It has any tender that goes out anywhere should be scrutinized and scrutinized and scrutinized again, because you are right. The Zondo Commission is going to take at least another 6 months, and then the wheels of justice turn slowly. And to sift through that evidence. And, Refiloe, people are even dying. There are people who should have gone to jail that are now, they've died of old age because the wheels of justice move that slowly. And people say to me, when are we going to see the results of the Zondo Commission?
The arrests, Natasha.
Trust me when I tell you that the day Brian Molefe gets arrested, I'm going to be the one sitting in the dock singing Cry Me a River as I see him walk down, they have to walk down that flight of stairs down to the prison. I'm going to sing him down that flight of stairs. But I'm no fool, and I know it's going to take a while because the wheels of justice turn slowly. But I can guarantee you they are turning. And the one good thing is we've turned off the tap. The tap is off, so that money has been seized, bank accounts have been seized and frozen. And it's thanks to our friends overseas who believed in us, like the Bank of the Indian government. They realized that the Bank of Baroda had all this money with the Guptas, and they froze their assets. So yes, the Guptas they're in Dubai. We know where they are. I mean, if you walk down the street in Dubai, you have a good chance of running into Tony. You know, he's there. But Interpol will get him here, and he will have his day in court. And Jacob Zuma, come hell or high water, and they can threaten as many civil wars as they want. We've seen what happens when South Africans say enough is enough. He will have his day in court, and he will wear his orange overall.
Oh my gosh, Natasha, I wish we had more time, but I need you to take a break. Don't go away though. Have something to drink. We are going to just have a bit of an entertainment so you can have a sip, and I'm going to take questions because we must engage community. It's not about you and me and how intriguing all this is. I know you tell me all the time, but every time I hear it, you tell me something new I hadn't heard or known about before.
Yep.
So program director, let's go to break, and we're going to come back and take questions from Zoom and some questions from Facebook. Thank you so much. Good day, my name is Refiloe Nt'sekhe. I'm the DA's mayoral candidate for Ekurhuleni. I'm here at the Platcott landfill site where these karikis or motorbikes were bought. There were supposed to be 200 that were supposed to be used for waste management. About 24 million was spent on these things. They've never been used since they were bought. As you see next to me, grass is growing through these karikis, and our people suffer. They have to draw things to do recycling. This is such a waste, and if you saw the Sunday Times, they mentioned that this was a tender, which was fruitless and wasteful expenditure. I want to push Premier Makura to release the SIU report on this karikis and why Philemon has not been dealt with, because it feels like this, it smells a rat, and that SIU report, the public to deserve to know the truth on what happened with their money when 24 million rand was spent on these karikis. I will be pushing for that SIU report to be tabled in the Gauteng legislature and publicized.
Over to you, Ref.
Natasha, we're back from our very small break. As you see, I've got my cup of tea just to make sure that listening to you, I can absorb all these things. But I want to say to you, thank you again for being here. I'm sure you saw in that little insert that we had, there you see state capture starting, or as you said, the tentacles have gone into Ekurhuleni. After registration weekend, I visited this particular place. These things are called tuk-tuks, karikis. 27 million rand spent on them. Guess who got the tender? Mabi. SIU report, and the Premier has not tabled it in the Gauteng legislature. So it's so perfect that we're talking to state capture, and the inset, it talks about how 27 million rand was spent, and this is supposed to be something that would have benefited our waste pickers, but they forgot to teach them how to drive, and they forgot to help them get licenses, and they've been sitting there for over 2 years.
And you know, Ref, I had a look at the video while you were talking, and you can see that so many of them have been stripped for parts already. So they're not going to be in working order. They've been stripped for their parts. And I mean, it's what really gets to me is how blatant the theft is. Look, we know that around the world corruption happens, right? We know this. And we've seen where there's corrupt politicians, they get caught and then they actually get fired and they actually leave their jobs. In this country, you get caught and you get promoted to Speaker of the House. I mean, this is what really irks me, is the fact that we get slapped. So state capture slaps us around a little bit, and then as if we haven't had enough hiding from the government, then they hit us with a left hook by putting someone in the chair as speaker or making someone a minister. This is what upsets me, is the fact that we treated like absolute fools, and the government think that we are absolute fools, that we don't see what they're doing. And I, the sooner we get a DA government in and get the ANC out. I mean, the fact that the president, let's just call it what it is. Not only did he break every lockdown regulation known to man with that manifesto launched last night, he literally begged South Africans to vote ANC and give them a second chance. Now, if you are so confident that you've done nothing wrong and that all you've done is in the best interest of your country, you don't have to go up onto a stage and beg people to forgive you for your wrongdoings. And that in itself is an indication. But it also shows how gutless our president is, because how can their caucus be so divided that you take someone who I mean, the speaker, Nkakula, she was the one who had the Jetgate scandal, who took a whole lot of ministers on a little holiday jaunt to Zimbabwe with her. She's known to have human trafficked a Burundian woman who was in a relationship with her son. I mean, these are not things that you and I talk about and we just talk about as politicians. This is public knowledge. It is in the public space. It's been investigated by journalists after journalists. And what happens? Instead of being fired, she gets promoted to Speaker of Parliament. And then I sometimes sit there in Parliament and I think, I don't know, like, how do I keep my mouth shut? And Ref, you know me, and you know that it's sometimes it's difficult. It's hard for the Italian temper to stay in check. And I sit there sometimes just asking the higher power to keep my mouth shut, because sometimes I'm very worried what I would say if I stood up and really spoke what was on my mind.
Well, that's the good thing about your discipline. But I think I want the residents to engage you. You and I can engage each other so many times. We've got so many opportunities. Program director, let's look at social media and see what residents want to ask Natasha, because having her is such an amazing gift to the residents to get to hear it from her firsthand and not from me reiterating what she can say for herself. I mean, we are blessed tonight. How many questions that we've got?
Yeah, Ref, I think social media, and thanks to Tasha, I think it's been very blazed tonight. A lot of comments, especially from Michael Polaki, saying Natasha for president, and really admiring the work that you do. And just some of also to you, Refiloe, it says time to get the hyenas out of local government. Refiloe for mayor. And
Amen.
Then we also have Nompumelelo, our usual Facebook viewer, saying good evening, watching all the way from Kempton Park. And then we've got a question for you, Refiloe. It's from Michael Polaki, who says, Natasha isn't afraid to go out to sites and see for herself. Can we expect the same from our hopeful mayor to be? I'm sure you ladies are very similar, having story as friends. So I think you elaborate on that. And then there's something.
Take that one, and then we take the next one, program director. I think I want to say to Michael Polaki, just since being in less than a month that I've been appointed as the mayoral candidate for the Democratic Alliance, I have been through the length and breadth of Ekurhuleni. In fact, just last week, we went to Etwatwa yesterday, where we saw a hub that was supposed to be for informal traders, where the municipality has spent over 4 million rand, not engaged residents on it. Already I put out a statement. And later on the day, another system where they've just fruitless and wasteful expenditure, where the municipality went and built this thing supposed to be a light industrial hub, forgetting to tell the community of Davidton and Etwatwa that they're building this thing, no consultation, no public participation. I swear this thing to me looks like it could have been built for 10 million, but they say it's 44 million and nobody's using it. So just from yesterday, 2 white elephants, money that could have been used to stimulate the economy of Ekurhuleni. We've seen earlier on, I've been to a jewelry precinct where millions were wasted. And now, instead of training people in jewelry, where we know India uses jewelry manufacturing to actually create jobs, they're using it as a food processing hub, wasting again millions. So that's a tip of the iceberg of the things I'm doing. I'm sure you also saw the insert where I went to visit those Karikis, where again, 27 million rand has been wasted of taxpayers' money. I'm not afraid. Like Tash says, it comes with the trade. If you don't have elephant skin, don't get into this job. I made a vow to the people of this municipality, including my kids, that I'm here because I want to govern well, because it might sound like a cliche, but I actually want my children to have a municipality and a country they can be proud of. And I want to play my role in correcting it and fixing it, not only for my kids, but remember, it takes a village to raise a kid. So the village is all the children that I didn't give birth to, but I see as my children throughout this metro every day when I see people living in squalor, and yet the municipality is wasting money.
Program Director, I wanna just also say to Michael Polaki, I think the surname sounds like he could be like me, an immigrant, a South African born here, but of immigrant with immigrant parents, and I think he could be one of my Greek brothers, if the Michael Polaki sounds right there. So Avcharisto for the lovely things that you say. But Michael, I want to tell you something that also people don't know. In the leadership of the DA, when things were rocky, and let's be honest, we've been through a rocky patch, and you know, we've had our annus horribilis, you know, might have gone on for a bit longer, but we've had it, you know, a bad time. Ref was dedicated. Not only did she have to do a job in the legislature, but she also had to go and oversee one of our metros and go and help them as we went through this difficult stage. So not only did Ref have to go and see for herself in Ekurhuleni, but she had to look after one of the metros in a very difficult area. And Ref did that. And Ref also had to go up to the Northwest Province and again, see for yourself what is going on, what is happening with farm murders, why a particular province is having these immense problems. And I always counted myself so lucky because, you know, Ref is based up in Joburg, and because I'm Chief Whip, even though we both originally grew up in Pretoria, you know, Ref is now in Ekurhuleni, and I'm sort of based in Cape Town because I'm the Chief Whip in Parliament. And Ref had to look after the northern provinces. And I would regularly phone her and I would say, please, when you've been to do that farm visit and you've gone out on those farm night vigils, just send me an SMS so that I know you're safe and that I know that you locked in your hotel room. And she'd be like, you are such an Italian mama. And I'd say to her, yeah, because we grew up together and we both know the way your parents think and the way my parents think. And you know, Ref is right when she speaks about my dad. My dad used to ask me, where's Ref this weekend? And I would tell him she's going to see farm attacks or something. And then he would be like, he would come and he'd phone me and he'd say, has Ref phoned to tell you she's safe? And if she hadn't phoned, I would have to phone Ref to make sure she's safe. So you've got an incredibly brave woman who's going to stand and is going to win and is going to be your mayor. Because what we have in common, and this is what I think makes our friendship special, and also why I think our careers have sort of mirrored each other as we've gone along, is we were brought up in such a similar fashion that Ref's family was my family was Ref's family. So we always knew, like on a Sunday, if someone was alone, you could go to their house and be part of their family. And Ref kids know that, you know, if the auntie was going to be in trouble, they had to be in trouble with someone, it would be me, you know, because we grow children by a village. And Ref's children call me Zia, which is auntie in Italian. and they know their auntie and they know how strict she is, and I'm only allowed to spoil them sometimes. But Ref has this concept which I love, which I think is so important to a South Africa where they're trying so hard, the fascists are trying so hard to divide us. We grow and we live as a village, and everyone in the village grows the children, and we look after the elderly, and we look after each other, because that is essentially what it's all about. And Ref has that instilled in her soul, and it's not only what she says, it's what she preaches, it's how she lives. And Michael, she's going to look after your community like a proper mother hen, and I mean that in the nicest way, because you're going to have someone who is looking after your best interests. And it's why I can so proudly and with such pride endorse Ref's candidacy, because I know intrinsically who Ref is inside and what she believes in. And this is a woman who's all action and very little talk. And sometimes I've had to tell her she's going for an interview, and I say to her, please don't forget them to say this, that, the other, because, you know, we have to go for interviews to be re-elected. Refiloe doesn't want to show off about what she's done. And I say to her, but you have to show off. They have to know what you've done. You can't just sit there and say to them, I want to serve the community. Because like the rest of us are going in there and we're like, hey, yeah, I went here, I went there, I did this, I did that. Refiloe is just like, look, I just did my job. I'm here to serve my community. And we have to remind her to tell people what she's done. You've got an amazing mayor coming in, Michael, and you're very lucky. I wish I lived in Ekurhuleni.
Okay, can we take more, Ref?
Let's take more, Program Director.
All right, so I'm gonna go to a comment from Councillor Bongani Nkosi, who also can testify of your experience, Natasha. Well, I'm gonna use the word, I was beaten up, because this is still a family show. On Friday, when I was putting up my candidate posters by angry ANC mob who had their preferred candidates shortchanged. So obviously it didn't go well with that election. And then Nompumelelo comments here, and probably Natasha, if you can come in here. She says, our government is based on state capture because of all the government officials are guilty of corruption. So I don't think there will be any of them going to jail. Their jail is just to be unseated from power. Like, if I can get, maybe Natasha, if you can just comment on that.
So I want to say first to all our candidates, and Ref knows that this is my feeling. Your life is more important than any poster. And when you see that you're in a danger area, please get out of there, because you are no good to us. And it's not worth losing your life over a poster that's being put up. And I know you were probably ambushed, but you are so brave. And I've known you, Bongani, for so long, and you're such a brave man, and just continue fighting the good fight. I hope they didn't hurt you too much. I wish I could be there with you, because you know me, I'm big. So when I'm not really a violent person, but if I've got to throw a punch, I'll throw a punch. And I wish I could have been there with you. You know, and I hear these things, Ref, and I get angry. Like I want to come there, and I want to like protect everyone. Do you know what I mean? But we can't. So Bongani, please, I'm so sorry this has happened to you. But just go in a big group. You know that they know you're going to win. That's why they're doing it. They know that you're going to win. It's the kick of a dying horse. But the kick of the dying horse is also the most dangerous kick. So please, I beg of you, look after yourself, and no poster is more important than your life. And who was it?
Nompumelelo.
You're right. Officials are, they all buy into it. And, you know, often we found that the DGs are involved, etc., etc. But in this case, what's happening is jail time becomes a very serious and a very real threat. So you get people who start to sing like a canary, like we saw in the first round of state capture. The Italian Angelo Agrizzi, what did he do? he went up onto the podium, and it was like he was in an opera. He didn't stop singing for 3 days. He just threw everyone under the bus. He started with Zuma, he ended with Cyril, he threw in Gwede. Everyone got to go. You know what I'm saying? Because they know they're going to land up in prison. So that's fine. Let's get them singing like canaries, and let's get them scared enough to just sing like they're in an opera, because they will do anything not to go to jail. Because let me tell you, jails in South Africa are as bad as we think they are. In fact, they are 100 times worse.
Yeah.
And I would do anything to stay out of a jail in South Africa. You know, thank goodness I'm an honest person, and you know, there's no reason for me to go to jail. But I mean, like, I don't, like, I watch Zuma, and I'm watching this whole you know, now I'm sick, and I call it Shabir Shakeatitis that he's got. You know, this disease that goes around when you're about to go to jail, Shakeatitis. And I think to myself, well, you know, I can't blame the old man, because I'd probably be doing everything in my power not to go to jail either. Because can you imagine him in jail? Yeah, he's not going to have a pleasant time. But they are going to go to jail. And this is what we know, because the Con Court has proved more often than not that they are a good, clean institution. And we saw it, you know, with their decision on the public protector. We saw it with the decision that we had to have the elections now. And yes, they might make rulings that we don't always agree with. But on the whole, we've got a judiciary that we can trust. And that judiciary is also thinking, you know, they don't like the idea that they have been infiltrated. No one likes the idea that they've been infiltrated. And Malcolm, you know, we've had our own share of moles that have infiltrated the DA over the years. It's not nice to know that you've been infiltrated and that you can't trust the person sitting next to you, or more frighteningly, the person sitting behind you. You should always be looking at your enemy. You should never worry that the enemy is sitting behind you. So people are going to go to jail. And that's not just my theory. That's my promise, is that people are going to go to jail.
Tasha, I think the reality of getting into government now is, we had Solly here that, about 2 weeks ago, and he talked about what it was like taking over Tshwane, because I wanted to take the residents of Ekurhuleni on the journey with me as a mayor of what I'm going to be inheriting. And I want to say, it is a captured city. You're taking an administration which works from a mentally captured ethos, from people who have to get brown envelopes to just have an invoice paid, even though they've done good work without having to go through irregular tender processes. So we have to dismantle years and years of institutionalized state capture until we get it into transparent, proper, clean governments, where we can be proud and say, we are now starting to make a dent in making this a well-oiled machine that is not smelling of corruption and state capture.
Well, Ref,
and that's
Helen,
what we have to inherit.
Absolutely. Helen Zille always says it took her 5 years to get Cape Town right.
Correct.
And she was sitting on a coalition that balanced on one person. So it depended what mood that councillor was in on the day, whether he'd vote ANC or DA. And that's why in this election, I am so adamant to push that the DA gets a full majority and that we don't need to go into coalitions, because coalitions are so incredibly difficult to run. And Ref, you are, I mean, all of you who are standing as mayors, you're going to inherit bankrupt municipalities. Your municipality is bankrupt. So you're going to have to build up the funds going forward, and people are going to expect from week one, potholes fixed, lights on, all your substations that keep blowing up, they're going to expect you to repair them. I mean, 1 week, you're going to be a hero. The second week, you're going to have people swearing you in the streets. You're going to have hate mail. I'm warning you now, because it's just a natural, it's a natural process that happens. People want, they are so desperate for service delivery that they'll get angry with you even when it's not rational. And
well, you know how crazy Ekurhuleni is, Tash. We have about 1,500 power outages here a day. Imagine what that does to residents, your appliances, businesses.
I mean, it's crazy.
That's why it was important to get Solly, who's been in the shoes I'm going to be wearing, to outline the journey that I'm going to be going through with them as residents of Ekurhuleni, so that we're sort of getting them to understand what their expectations realistically can be.
And I think the key to all of that, Ref, is now that we like, people have sort of got used to Zoom, right? I can't imagine having a normal town hall meeting again, because for me, Zoom is wonderful. We've got everyone watching us here who's probably at home, comfortable, drinking a cup of tea, maybe eating their dinner while they're watching. I think that as mayor, what you should do, and I'm sure you're going to do this, is take people on the journey with you and sort of have like a weekly feedback meeting where you say to them, you know, this week we uncovered this, and, you know, we're sorting this out, we're sorting that out. I think communication is key. And when you let your residents know what you're doing and you take them on the journey with you, and you take them on the ride, so they know what you've been dealing with, how you've been dealing with it, who you're appointing, the residents are a lot more understanding, and they will give you that breathing space to catch your breath, to get money into the accounts. Because quite frankly, Ref, I've been told that in your municipality you don't have the machines to fill the potholes anymore, so you're going to have to gather up money so that you can buy 10 or 15 of these machines to fill your potholes. Your substations are so old that there's no parts for them anymore. They don't make those parts anymore, so you're going to have to replace the entire substation. And that's when you're going to have to take the residents on a journey with you and literally camp out at that station, maybe get some braais going so that people can come home for a boerewors roll, because they're not going to be able to cook while you're changing that substation. But take the residents on the journey with you. And then as South Africans, we'll be able to fix the problems that have been caused, because I don't think people blame us for the problems, but I do sometimes think that people think we can perform miracles. And we perform a miracle in that we are completely clean. That is one thing we can say, and we can say with pride. We are a clean organization. We do not tolerate corruption. And if someone is corrupt or there's a hint of corruption, they are thrown out. And we've seen it happen. It's happened. I mean, I've been involved in one. We all know which one. I'm not even going to bring it up. We know an auntie who doesn't like me very much, but we put our money where our mouth is. And I always say, with that saga, had we just taken the public more into our confidence and explained to them step by step what we were doing, we would have been forgiven for a lot of the mistakes that we made along the way, because it was the first time we'd ever done it. No one ever expected us to have to fire one of our own. So we didn't really know what we were doing. And I'm the first one to say it. And I spend most of my time apologizing that I didn't take the public on that journey with me. So we need the public to understand step by step what we're doing. And then we'll see that the public will understand that we're turning an entire country around. It's almost like we've fallen off the cliff, and now the DA is the parachute that's deployed that makes the landing soft. But once we land, oh boy, are we going to start running, and we're going to get things working.
Natasha, it's been amazing. Our residents are desperate and frustrated because we haven't had service delivery, but it's DA Dialogue Hour. I wish it was DA Dialogue 2 hours, but it's only 1 hour. And I would have loved to have Natasha to talk a lot more about state capture, because believe me, this topic, we can unpack it nationally, we can unpack it at Ekurhuleni, but we just don't have enough time. And we know some people have postponed their dinner to 8 o'clock. So without further ado, thank you, Natasha, for being with us at Ekurhuleni's DA Dialogue Hour, where we engage the residents of Ekurhuleni. And believe me, we have been asked to keep this dialogue hour going, even post the elections. And I absolutely intend to. As I said to you, we normally have about 250 people coming through on Facebook. And the beauty of DA Dialogue Hour, it stays on social media and people get to watch it on live and post, because sometimes they're just not able to because they've got families. But when they have time as their bedtime viewing, they watch the DA Dialogue Hour, listening to Natasha Mazzone unpacking what state capture means for them nationally and for us in Ekurhuleni, and what I'm going to be doing for them. State capture in Ekurhuleni shall not be tolerated. Thank you, beautiful people. See you Thursday, where we will be with our shadow MMC, Councillor Senzi Sibeko, unpacking economic development from the opposition benches. See you Thursday, 7 o'clock at the DA Dialogue Hour. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening.
God, you we stand in your presence. We need more of you. With open hearts and your will that commands us, we'll do what you do. Do 1,000 fall at our right hand and 10,000 at our side. There is nothing that could shake us, 'cause in you we will abide. Nothing's gonna stop us now. We are the people of God, and this is His hour. Lifting up the King of Kings, to you our praises we bring. Jesus. Moving out from a desert wasteland, crying out to you. Holding on 'cause we promised people, we know your word is true. Though 1,000 fall at our right hand and 10,000 at our side, there is nothing that could shake us, 'cause in you we will abide. Nothing's gonna stop us now. We are the people of God, and this is His hour. Lifting up the King of Kings, to you our praises